For sure. And Paul, let's move over to Rangers. They had a disappointing result against Celtic, obviously, on the weekend. But positive news, they'll be back in Ibrox on September 21. Can they turn their season around after only 7 points through 4 matches?
It's a big ask, isn't it? I mean, you look at their record, the recent record in the Old Firm. If you're not beating the boys across the city, then that's where the problems start. You can pick up as many points as you want in the rest of the season, but if you're not beating the biggest rivals in the Old Firm, that's where the issue is. I think it's huge news that they're going back to Ibrox. I think that whole situation was handled poorly, but the fact that that's done and they're going back will play a huge part in the rest of the season. They've got to close that gap on Celtic. You know, their recent record in Old Firms is poor. They're not getting soundly beaten. They're not out of the ball, but I think they're lacking in the final third. I think Celtic have got better attacking options than Rangers have. I don't think they're far away on a game-to-game basis, but it's every game that they're getting beaten, which is the problem. You know, you look at the games and are they in the games, but yeah, they're still getting beaten in those games, which is the problem for them. Obviously, with European football kicking in as well for both, we know that Celtic now want to get through those group stages in the Champions League, which is massive for them. They've got the edge at the moment, Celtic, haven't they? Quite clearly got the edge, and Rangers have got to close that gap. The thing for Philippe Clement is, I think he's a good manager, and I think given the time and the players, and the biggest thing is the budget. I think Michael Beale was a huge mistake on a Rangers point of view. They give him a lot of money. He signed a lot of players which didn't produce, and the results weren't there. But then you get a good manager like Philippe Clement, and because previous managers have misspent, and he's got a squad of players that he didn't necessarily want, from a Rangers point of view, I'd much rather Philippe Clement spend the amount of money that Michael Beale had to spend. You look at what Rangers and Celtic spent last season. I think Celtic were near 30-odd million spend by bringing a lot of revenue in. Rangers were 14 million, but they had to get players who hit the ground running. There's a big difference between the two at the moment, but they have to make that up on the pitch, and the gap has to be closed.
For sure. And Pete, you know, Paul just mentioned Clements' pretty poor record against Celtic, losing all 5 times he's faced them. At what point does that put him on the hot seat, let alone the other results he's getting?
Well, if you look at the fans' reaction, he's already in that hot seat. There's a lot of anger from Rangers fans after that latest Old Firm defeat. Those results against your biggest rivals will decide your fate. There's no doubts about that. Those 4 Old Firm games this season could decide the league title if you win those, because we know that you expect Celtic and Rangers to win most other games, so they are the games where you can make the big difference. I think Clement did a good job when he first arrived last season. There was definitely an improvement in Rangers. He got them into the title race, and it was in their own hands heading into the final few weeks before they slipped up and let Celtic take control of it and go on and win the league as well. He's not been helped by the financial situation of Rangers. This summer has been a case of sort of selling players and balancing the books, and then he hasn't had a lot of funds to go out and improve the squad as well. He's banned a lot of unknown quantity, younger players as well. You could see that. I think there was 4 players made their Old Firm debuts at the weekend, and it showed really in that game, where you need a bit of experience and a bit of fighting spirits and everything else, not to go under like they did when Celtic got ahead. And as I said, it was 3-0, but it could have been a lot more in that one. So I feel a bit for Clement in that respect, but yeah, there's a growing gap between the two clubs. You can just see that. Celtic ended up selling Matt O'Reilly for a Scottish transfer record fee down to Brighton, so that money's helped Celtic go out and make a few signings on deadline day, while Rangers were selling arguably one of their bigger players, Todd Cantwell, to Blackburn for a nominal fee. So they're not getting much back from that, and I don't think Philippe Clement is seeing much of that money. And with Celtic being in the Champions League, that's extra money in their pot as well, while Rangers are missing out. So it's a real difficult time for Rangers right now, because they can sort of see Celtic moving further and further away from them in the horizon. And for Rangers, it's going to be a lot of pain, I think, before we see any real improvements and where they can close that gap.
Yes, there's no doubt about that. And Paul, what are your thoughts on their Europa League draw? Obviously, Ange coming back to Ibrox, potentially to haunt Rangers, a trip to Old Trafford. Do you think they can make it out of the league stage? They kind of got a tough draw.
Oh, listen, I think it's a great draw. I really do think it's a really good draw, but it's a tough draw. I mean, you look at Rangers and Celtic, and you look at the history of the two clubs, European giants, and you look at the history that both clubs have got in Europe. And when you look at Rangers' draw, I mean, Tottenham, Man United, Lyon, Olympiacos, even Malmo, they've got a great European history. To have those ties, but to have those ties at Ibrox, you know, Tottenham at Ibrox, Lyon at Ibrox, they've got such big games, and it is fantastic to see. And that's where Rangers and Celtic want to be. They want to be playing these big games. And you look at Celtic's Champions League draw, I think they've got a real good chance of getting out of the group as well, because I think their draw is favourable to them. But as far as Rangers go, there's teams there, Union, SG, Malmo, Nice away. There's some really good European trips. There's some cracking games. And for Rangers fans, I think it'll just be a really, really good journey. Get some performances and go deep into this competition. It's in a similar way at Newcastle last year. You look at Newcastle, they were in the group of death, weren't they, in the Champions League? And in the same way, you look at that Rangers group and you go, wow, brilliant. Tottenham, Man United, Lyon. And for the neutral, it's fantastic. And I think for the Rangers fans, you look at the away days first of all, don't you? I know a lot of my friends who are Tottenham fans, as soon as the Europa League draw comes out, passport comes out, computer comes out, right, where are we going? And that draw for Rangers, it's a fantastic draw. It's tough, but it's a brilliant draw for me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And lastly, on Rangers, Pete, there are rumors of an American takeover, which in a lot of ways could be great for a club who's in need of money. But we've seen some American takeovers in football go a couple of different ways. Obviously, Todd Bowley being kind of the extreme. Do you think Rangers fans would be happy with an American owner coming in?
In the current situation that they find themselves in, I think they would be open to any potential takeover. There's a lot of unhappy Rangers fans with the club's board right now as well. You could see that after the Old Firm game at the weekend when Philip Clements and the players were leaving Ibrox. There was a lot of unrest there as well. I just think Rangers fans are a bit unhappy at how far they've fallen behind Celtic. Obviously, Celtic's revenue is well in excess of Rangers, and obviously Rangers find themselves behind Celtic, not just in the boardroom but also on the pitch, and that's where the fans really care. They want Rangers competing for trophies and beating their fiercest rivals on the pitch. So I'm sure they'll look at this American potential takeover and see it as a positive sign, because if it promises to bring in extra revenue to the club and changes, I'm sure it's something that the Rangers fans would definitely be up for.